Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid. Today we have Alan Brody. Alan Brody is the founder of Startupalooza, iBreakfast, Tech Marketing. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, give us a brief background. What you've been doing for the last 16 years. I believe iBreakfast is around for 16 years, Startupalooza for 10 years. So,
Well, we were originally a conference business. I mean, I was originally wasn't a journalist, and this matters when we talk about telecommuting or so on. We evolved into a conference group that introduced the internet, e-commerce, and everything along the way to business executives, and then we evolved into an entrepreneurs group because we had a unique understanding of what investors were looking for from startups. And we help startups raise millions of dollars. And so we provide a live platform for entrepreneurs to meet investors. And then we provide a workshop, basically a free workshop, consulting services, and a book that helps entrepreneurs understand how to shape their idea from the perspective of an investor, which is very different from the idea they thought they had. So for us to morph into this COVID world has been a very interesting challenge.
So we'll come to the challenges later. So I just want to pick your mind on one thing. So the entrepreneurial DNA, we hear a lot about the entrepreneurial DNA of, do you see any commonalities between all of these young founders or entrepreneurs? Do you see one coast doing better than the other, or one continent doing better than the other, or do they share a common DNA?
Well, look, they're not all young. All right. So the desire for entrepreneurship runs deep, and it cuts across all age groups.
Okay.
What's fundable is a different story.
Got it. So what are the commonalities for, these fundable entrepreneurs, the top 0.3%, or, any commonalities or pattern you've seen?
Well, so I would tell you that in spite of all the stuff you read about, young startups with big ideas, et cetera, the truth of the matter is the most fundable company, and we use this as a model, most fundable company is somebody who has about 10 years, could be more, about 10 years experience in a particular field. We call that domain expertise. And they've identified an opportunity that only somebody in that field would really understand. They figured out the solution. They have the product. They have the customers. They have the team. Ready to go. That person probably already has his money as we speak. So we use that as a model because, and by the way, that person is statistically the most likely to return on the investment. That's the safest bet. So that's the gold standard. Very few of those people exist. And when they do exist, they get funded before they even left the stable. However, we use it as a model to explain to everyone else that they need to have an idea that looks like it could become that. And either it needs a little bit of fixing, or they're a cheap version of that model. And that's really how we try to get people to understand what looks interesting to an investor. So that's sort of the model. And and basically, if you fit into that model and you are coachable, there's a very good chance you'll get funded. Everyone else has to have a big story.
Oh, interesting.
A very big story.
So post-COVID world, when it comes down to especially the fundraising, we've been reading up articles or hearing stories that even the VCs are rethinking their business models, the investment thesis primarily. They're rethinking their investment thesis. Startups have
Yeah.
been given that, increase your timelines from 12 months to the runways from 12 months to 24 months, and this space is going to be higher, more popular, this space. So what are your thoughts on the post-COVID world? An opportunity brings, in every problem there's an opportunity as well. So
Yeah, well, this is true. So we spent a lot of time thinking about it. So obviously, if you have an immediate solution, if you have something that's ready to go and it solves a problem right now, you have a good chance of being funded. So let's say, for argument's sake, if you know how to do a haircut without me being at risk for COVID-19, or the barber being at risk for COVID-19, you have a customer. Multiply that by 200 million people,
yeah,
you have customers. So if you have a solution that's ready to roll, yeah, you get funded. However, that's pretty rare. I mean, what, you have plexiglass, you have touchless. I mean, we know all the trends. So it's kind of as if the train has already left the station for the low hanging fruit opportunities.
yeah,
So what we really see are, for the most part anyway, either people who have an idea that could be reformatted or repositioned as a COVID solution. Like,
got
for example, we have a company that helps small business leverage their relationship with the public. Um, that was a boring idea 2 months ago. Today, um, it actually is an enabler for small business to recoup and reconnect with the consumers, and big players might actually fund it. Cities, BDIs, you name it. So by adding that COVID spin to what basically a tired pitch, they actually have a shot at getting funded. That would be a good example. So somebody has an idea that was not so great, and all of a sudden it's useful. And it could be in telecommunication. It could be touch. I mean, there's all kinds of touchless payment systems that nobody cared about. All of a sudden they do, and so on. So that's, if you're in that category, that's the one category, is sort of repositioning an idea that suddenly makes sense, and you had it ready to go. But if you're starting from scratch, if you have a brand new idea, it's incumbent on you to define a future where that product is not critical. You can't just say, this is a great idea, it's going to happen. No, you're going to have to explain to investors what the future looks like and why that product is critical. That's a big burden. That's hard to do.
got
Um, But those are the two main areas. Look, there's outliers. Somebody might have an idea that looks crazy. Somebody might like it. You can have ideas that people just, have a thing about. I mean, I've seen people with a new kind of vodka. Maybe you like vodka and you think, I'll take a chance. And then there's another bunch um, where there are obviously gaps in the established players' um, repertoire, in their portfolio. And that's actually, we're seeing a lot of activity in M&A. Now, we're not in M&A, but M&A is the key exit for most of our startups. So that helps define, the exits to find where you're aiming for. So in M&A, what we're seeing is a lot of companies are buying up on the cheap. Various successful, established startups that fill certain gaps, like, for example, Facebook buying Giphy. All right, that would be one. Did they buy it at a discount? I'm not sure, but it probably was relatively inexpensive for them. So if you figure an area that Microsoft can't fulfill, or any big player,
yeah.
lesser name players, you might get acquired, but it will probably be at a discount.
Got Last question, Alan. So, any three pieces of advice would you give to young entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs of how to go about, primarily about fundraising in these times? Because everything has been forced to go on Zoom, right? So I myself, I believe in a person-to-person relationship, but because of these times, we've been forced to go uh, do Zoom meetings or video calls. So still learning, not used to it. So how to go about it?
Well, look, if you're on Zoom, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we've gotten more used to it, but I would counsel all startups to go into a pitch, and this is really why we have the workshop. Go into pitch with somebody, uh, not really a colleague, but somebody who is able to be critical, so that they can help them understand how investors see their pitch. Because most entrepreneurs are so caught up in the history and how they got the idea and how they struggled and what they've done and blah, 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 that they don't understand what investors are actually looking for. And investors don't really care about all that story, all of the backstory, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they might, when they IPO, they might want to sit down over a few drinks, find out how that all came about. But that's not really what they want to hear. So they need to find out from an independent person who can help them how investors perceive that. Now, that would be true in under normal circumstances. But if you're going on to Zoom, this is showtime, baby. You have got to have that figured out. Your Zoom presentation has to be crisp. It has to be clear. Every beat counts. It has to have the right rhythm. You made a movie. So it is twice as symbolic when you're on Zoom. So you should rehearse it. You should have it worked out. And it should not sound like you read it. You can't read from the script. It has to come from the heart. But it has to be really well rehearsed. So all I can say is when you're on Zoom, you're on camera. And if you're on camera, you've got to be rehearsed.
Yeah. Alan, thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you so much for being on the show. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. We'll be in touch.
All righty. Thank you.